friends want us.
Oh,
Almost got me.
I don't know what he was going to say, but we're live. Welcome to Earful of Dirt. I'm Aaron Castro. You can find me on Twitter at the Strobro. That is Craig Gradelli. You can find him at American RFC. How's it going, Craig? It's been getting interesting.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Certainly a lot going on in the world. You know, everyone here at the Gradelli household is safe, thank goodness. But where to live in, this is New York City. It's certainly a hot button issue around here. So we're all trying to figure our way through to a better tomorrow.
So you don't have the Rona?
I don't have the Rona, I don't think. I think that's like last week.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Do you have the Giltini?
Oh God! Are we getting to the Giltinis already?
No,
no.
I think isn't it an illness? We'll get to that much later. I would say, as far as things are going in Arizona, I got to the barbershop last Friday, and I know people are telling me to shave the rest of it, but I got a nice high fade. It feels nice. It was excellent to go to a barber shop where you go in and they give you the whole thing, and then they break out that straight razor and they lather up all your edges and get that hot shave going.
Yeah, this is Gradelli barbershop work. In my shower, did this myself. My barbershop has remained closed throughout the outbreak. I hear they will come to your house for $100, but
really,
I'm not seeing anyone. The podcast community will accept me for who I am with this haircut. I think.
I think you did all right with that. It's I cut my hair once during this period of time, and I think you all in our WhatsApp group definitely told me to just bick my head. So
I did that earlier. Very interesting experience, but I have actually a surprising number of birthmarks and freckles under here, so it wasn't the Jason Statham, Daddy Warbucks, Vin Diesel look I was hoping for. So I don't think I'm ever going to go that short again.
So I have previously bicked my head, not in a long time. I did it for some stupid reason in high school. I decided to. I have to say, if you're going to do that, the perfect look, when you have hair, the perfect look is like right when the follicle is peeking out, like as far as like how you touch your head. Now I would definitely prefer to, I know guys that shave their head every day. I don't know how they do that. At some point I'm going to be bald, and probably that will be the look that I will go for. But not today. But we're here for the rugby. It's been, I know I said we were going to get a lot of content out. Well, things happen, right? We're going to try. But in a sense, as far as the regular show, wish Liam was with us. He's got a lot of stuff he's working on right now. So hopefully, when things get all better and we're all free to move about the cabin, as it were, we'll get the whole gang back on the show. But a lot of things have happened in the has it been 11 weeks since we were on air?
Really that long?
It's been a while.
How did you guys make it without us?
It's been a while. So you guys, our fans and our listeners, thank you for beating us up, because we still posted on Twitter and trying to ask us questions. We did get some questions in today on both Facebook and Twitter, and we will answer those. That happened.
We coordinated that, Scott. For our listeners at home, both Aaron and I have on teal-ish polos. So the Facebook Live community is remarking on our style.
Yeah. So we didn't even talk about what we were going to wear. Maybe next time we'll wear, maybe send me that sweet vintage NYRC kit you got the other day, and maybe we'll twin that.
I should have worn that actually.
But so where do we want to start? I mean, we've seen the last big episode we had. We focused on USA Rugby's reorganization and bankruptcy. That's going to be a big part of tonight's episode. You're going to hit up apparently, the finance stuff, I guess, is taken care of. I don't know. We haven't dug through the filings, but as far as I can tell, it's going forward. So we'll get into that. The MLR draft, if you've listened to MLR Kickoff, we'll work through some of the eligibility guidelines, but then there's these workout windows that we'll talk about. LA has launched their brand and their coaching team. We'll talk about them. And also the biggest news, I guess, in the rugby world recently in the U.S. is Glendale is cutting their women's program. So we will touch on that with an editorial. We had an editorial the last time when we found out that they were cutting, that they withdrew from MLR. And if you haven't seen Wendy Young's article on your Scrum Half Connection, you can see it on our Twitter feed. Go read that. She did some really good work getting the news out. I think it was for, Thursday night. And then I talked to a lot of USA Women Eagles, and then we spoke with a few different Glendale women players, and it got confirmed. And really good work from Wendy Young on that story and getting it out there. So go read it on your Scrum Half Connection, because I would say she was able to talk to a lot of people and get a lot of things out there. But we'll sort of talk about it in a different context later on the show. So I guess the first order of business really is USA Rugby bankruptcy update. The governance plan, which essentially blew up Congress, was approved by the Rugby Congress, and it was also approved by the bankruptcy court. So what does that mean? I mean, Craig, you are a member of a GU board. When you read some of this stuff and how it was spoken to you, and how your congressperson brought it back, because I think Ken Pape is the president of the Empire Rugby Union, and so you are intimately involved in the process as far as the senior side and getting the next piece update spun up.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the messaging we've gotten has been consistent with, the overall theme since USA Rugby, before even the Chapter 11, when they announced a soft R restructuring earlier this year. They said they were going to devolve control to the local unions, be more of a decentralized format, because last year there was this problem about them repurposing club dues for the national team, and that was kind of the first major shockwave that ultimately led to the bankruptcy. But I think the new governance plan is in line with that. It's just devolving more and more responsibility and authority to the local unions. So, as at the union level, we were preparing for the possibility of being completely severed from USA Rugby. It doesn't, I would say there was a time where we thought that was maybe the most likely outcome. Right now, it seems like we're going to be able to maintain a tie with the national governing body. Exactly how it's going to look, I'm not sure yet, but it seems clear that it's going to be a lot more locally focused.
I think on the senior side, it's I like to say is at the end of the day, the senior game was run by a committee which was populated not by the board or even some Congress people, but by club people. And you had the National Competitions Committee and you also the Club Strategic Committee, and those were the two big committees that sort of steered the game through the ocean, and then you also had the Eligibility Committee that was the bane of existence for a lot of people, is the best way I can explain it. But here at the end of the day, and the national office is forced to enforce those policies. So now you have the national office is going to shrink because services are now going to be pushed down. Like, I guess not services are going to be pushed down, but fulfillment of services are going to be pushed down to organizations that either spin up or to support senior club rugby, collegiate rugby, and youth rugby, or they're just going to be fulfilled by like the council on a volunteer basis. I don't really know what that's going to look like. I think from what some of the minutes I've read from Empire in a meeting you were probably in, and from Texas Rugby Union, is that there could be a transition phase a little bit where you contract services out from the NGB for, I guess, would be for more dues. But as you like spin up the senior club, I wouldn't say governing body, but the senior club administration organization that runs senior club rugby in the United States, then whatever you pay to the NGB will diminish because it will just be for essential services like insurance and maybe a little bit of money, like $2 going towards operations. In a sense, collegiate rugby was a bit more organized, but now I think the battle lines are being drawn because you have the Collegiate Rugby Association of America, which was formed out of D1A, and you have the collegiate clubs that are aligning under D1A, which is going to an objective of theirs is to remain within the structure of USA Rugby. So they are going to sign. They are in the midst of negotiating their associative agreement and populating their seats on the Collegiate Council. And then you have the other major organization out there that was NSCRO, National Small College Rugby Organization, and it is now NCRO, but NCR, National College Rugby for short. So hey, there the poach says he's currently so it's really intense to say that what's going on, right? And I've heard so much to say from NCR folks that they want nothing to do with the next organization, and that's just not constructive. Because at the end of the day, for me, and like if you look at how this thing is like your job as a coach is to provide that leadership for your players, but for a lot of these coaches, they're hired and fired by players. So what are they actually doing the governance decisions correctly for their players? I don't know. I'm not trying to editorialize that. I'm saying that when it comes to how the Ted Stevens X aligns and how the USOC regs work, is like you can run your own competition, but you have to have some type of relationship with your NGB. And if all that relate the memorandum of agreement says is like, hey, we're associated with you. Thank you for your time. Here's $1.
Well, let me ask you. I mean, you probably know this, as well as anybody, but so hockey is a Olympic sport.
Yes.
And hockey has an NCAA component and a professional component that are separate. I mean, how do those things relate to the hockey national governing body?
So when it comes to NCAA sports and state high school athletic association sports, the best way I can put it is, so you have varsity, like true varsity, which is NCAA, or in the case for US Rugby, only one high school association certifies rugby as a varsity sport, and that is Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association. So the only true full varsity as far as a state is concerned, rugby, is in Massachusetts. And those aren't clubs. Those are teams within the schools and like they aren't youth clubs, and they don't become, because it's the high school athletic association. They don't need to be members of USA Rugby because they have all the governance components that go within that. And at the NCAA level, you have NIRA, National Intercollegiate Rugby Association, that I think we're now at 22 schools. They don't, like, those people don't have to become members of USA Rugby. Those players don't have to become, those student athletes don't have to become members of USA Rugby because they fall under the governance of the NCAA. I've read a lot of stuff that's being put out there. I think Alex Goff is writing some stuff. I don't necessarily agree with some of the stuff he's writing, but there is information that he is putting out that, not a lot of other people are putting out, because there is not a lot of rugby media in this country. So, and when it, like, this is we could go on, like, I could do 90 minutes plus on, the regs and why you have to be a member of the NGB if you're not in the, like, if you're not governed by your state high school athletic association, and what that membership looks like is a completely different conversation, because NCR has a lot of colleges and a lot of collegiate clubs as their membership. So they have a bargaining power that they can use. But from what I'm being told in a lot of conversations I've had, is that they're just not going to negotiate. They're just not even going to come to the table, which I think is not I don't think that's productive. On the youth rugby, you were going to say something, Craig.
I'm just, this is definitely outside of my area of expertise here, but I mean, why is it unproductive if they don't come to the table? What do they lose by not coming to the table? Their players, their student athletes can't play for Team USA. So, I mean, there's not many college age players doing that anyway. So, I mean, what's the downside for them for going their own way?
Like the downside, I wouldn't say in a sense that there's a downside. Like, there's some, I wouldn't call them draconian measures, but if they're not members, then they can't really tour overseas. Like, so the way this works for senior club rugby, for youth rugby, for collegiate rugby, if it's not NCAA specifically, because NCAA allows you to, and covers your insurance and all that stuff, to allow you to tour. We see it with baseball. We see it with basketball. We see it with football, because Jim Harbaugh took the Michigan football team down to South Africa to train with the Springboks for a week on their spring educational trip that they do every year. So I guess
forever winning Tom Brady's fanhood of the Springboks.
Yeah. So So, but to get clearance to tour, if you're a club, you have to submit a bunch of documents to you, in theory, to the NGB. And this goes for, team sports in general that are club-based around the world, not just, rugby. So you submit documents, get certification, get authorization from the NGB, and then they send that packet to the NGB in the other country that you're going to play. So that says that you have all your insurance, like, you're good to go. You're in compliance. So if you're just not going to be a member, then they can't certify you to go overseas.
Yeah, but I'm sure their argument would be, we don't require your certification. We do whatever we want. You don't control us. So
yeah.
I guess
the point is
the union overseas accept them.
The point is the union overseas won't accept them. That's the point. Is like, that's not a lot of power. I mean, if you don't want to tour and you don't want to go overseas and you don't care about hosting, I would need to dig into this. I think it also applies to, like, recruiting foreign players. I would need to look into that. I've heard something about that, but I don't know the mechanics of that would stop you from being able to recruit players from another country. I think that it creates some problems if you're not. But, like, the idea is this packet gets submitted to the other union. like an approved packet goes to the other union, and then that union approves that packet and allows you to play. If you don't have a packet from your union that certifies you to travel, then you don't get to play. Or we go like, as we've talked about before, what is it? Underground rugby.
Yeah, no.
Craig,
I wasn't going to say anything, but I'm sure I've been on some tours. I don't know if there was ever any paperwork filled out. So, you know,
Craig,
no, not saying names or what club that was, but
Craig, what's going on with your internet?
Is it jumped? I heard some weird noise outside. I think the riot's coming.
It's breaking up. The picture's breaking up for sure. There we go. We're getting stable. But yeah, so like that's kind of the biggest sort of, I guess, stick the USA Rugby could have, is like stop you from being able to recruit foreign players and stop you from touring overseas. But if you don't care about that, then you're kind of the biggest thing you have to work with is being able to cross state lines. And that's why you have NGBs. So you have like centralized insurance so you can cross state lines. But if you don't care about crossing state lines,
yeah. Well, I know that there's, you know, you can find ways to get your own insurance too.
Yeah. So, but that's
we've gone deep enough into this question.
But the point is, I don't think it's productive to just say we're just not going to be a part of this for the sport in general. Because there's been, I would say there's a lot of selfish people in rugby, and it's very annoying. The point is we're all supposed to have a kumbaya and just do this together. And in a sense, I would say people have, you know, held on to their little piece of land for a long time, and they don't want to, you know, be friends. I don't know why. I don't know the histories with some of this stuff, and I don't really care about some of the history of some of the stuff that led to this. It's like, we're a union. We're supposed to be together. Like that's the end of it. You know, that's my opinion. The reorganization on the U side is kind of murky, kind of not, but I would say just because the way the U side stuff has worked, I think eventually they're going to be the most organized group whenever they get their youth organization stood up. I know that there's been a American Youth Rugby Organization thing that I think they were going to try and build through, but I read something from Goff. He talked about populate the council. The idea is you need to populate the youth council, and then the youth council needs to build a youth sports administrative body, national office type thing, so that it can provide services to youth players. And then so each council, senior, collegiate, and youth are supposed to be 10 members apiece, and they directly appoint their board member. I think there's an international athlete council, but I don't know about the size, because it's like the international athletes have always been a direct appointment from the international athletes to the board. I don't know what it looks like right now, but international athletes will increase from 2 seats to 4 seats, and they are supposed to have an IA council. I think it's supposed to be 10 members, and there will be but then they also have a greater voting population than just the IA council. So yeah, you have, this is the most, I would say, the way this works. I don't know if it's the best, but it's okay as far as an organization structure is concerned. My biggest thing is, at least with Congress, the way it was organized, you could have a no confidence vote and remove the whole board. It was difficult. It never had, they had a no confidence vote once, and they never got a 2/3 majority, but the people they tried to remove eventually did get removed. But we've just been so up creek without a paddle that fixing those problems has been very difficult. since then. And that was all this Rugby World Cup 7 stuff, right? But that gets us on to the last piece, and that's, World Rugby is our dip loan provider. So, and I guess that's being approved, and I'm told that we could be in our workout plan before midsummer. So that's where the finance.
So, I mean, I think we knew that World Rugby was going to be the dip lender. It's approved. That's no shock. So, as you look at the bankruptcy, depending on your interest and your point of view, there's kind of two main things that need to be resolved. There's the governance, which seems to be more or less resolved. And there's the finances. And you may be a person who thinks we're in this mess because of governance issues. You may be a person who thinks we're in this mess because of finance issues. Obviously, they're connected in some way. So it depends a little bit on your point of view. But the governance part seems to be done and more or less resolved. The finance part, I still haven't seen anything. I mean, we know the first day motions were filed that describe the lead up to the filing. We know that USA Rugby, what petitioned World Rugby for loans prior to this dip loan, prior to the Chapter 11 petition. And World Rugby provided those. World Rugby is the biggest creditor. We know JP, they're not the senior creditor. I think it's JP Morgan. Their bank is actually the senior creditor, but their bank, they're really into the nuances here. Their bank is, as a senior creditor, if someone else is going to provide the dip loan other than the senior creditor has to be given something called adequate protection. It could take a number of forms, but in this case, it's the most basic form you can imagine, which is they're just taking the amount of cash they owe to JP Morgan and putting it aside. And that cash is going to go to JP Morgan. So JP Morgan almost certainly will be made whole from this and not be impaired at all. What we still need to see, which I guess Aaron is intimating we'll see by midsummer, is a plan of reorganization that will tell you what happens to the rest of the pre-petition claims, predominantly World Rugby's loan, but there's other small claims, vendor claims, stuff like that. And a dip loan is in Chapter 11 financing only. I mean, that's something that can't exist outside of Chapter 11. So there'll also need to be an exit plan as part of the plan of reorganization that says, okay, we borrowed $5 million, whatever it is, in a dip loan to fund this bankruptcy. That needs to be repaid by the time this bankruptcy ends. So is World Rugby going to come in and provide an exit loan to repay their other loan, or is some other creditor going to provide, or is there some other lender going to provide it? So we'll see who's going to finance the exit. World Rugby is financing the process, but it's not clear yet who finances the exit.
Yeah, I think World Rugby ends up financing our exit, right? Like that's probably what's going to happen, and then you'll obviously get some revenue generated from sponsorships because I think EY still wants to be a part of rugby. I'm pretty sure. So you'll get some sponsorship revenue. You'll get some event revenue. Oh, and here's a good one. I'm pretty sure I've heard things. This is where the old earful of dirt comes from. That this will tie into Glendale stuff because Wendy Young mentioned it in her piece that I don't think it's long term, but I'm pretty sure Glendale is going to provide office space and warehouse stuff and try to be the training center for USA Rugby for at least a year. And they are going to provide this, I think, gratis. I mean, this goes into the politics that I talked about previously.
Men and women, or just men?
Men and women, but like I said, like we will talk about later in the show, they cut their women's program, so this gets really interesting.
Yeah.
So, like, it's so there's some really weird things moving, but apparently Glendale is, and I'm guessing they're going to get some type of remuneration, like they're going to get a number of tests and events in exchange for rent-free, I guess, housing of the NGB and, services that they may provide, whatever those services become or are. But
I wonder if they consider just working from home. I mean, in a post-corona world, does the USA Rugby office really need to have a physical office with rent that can't manage?
I mean, when I think about this, right? You know, for now, it's like, do we need a big warehouse of stuff? Can we just, can we just rent our warehouse manager's garage? Like, let's just, or no, not their garage, but let's just get 2 storage units for $100 a month at the U-Haul. Was it public storage? It's $100 a month, and that's for like climate control. That's all. Do we need a huge warehouse? Right now, today, right now, do we need a huge fulfillment warehouse for Kit and a Gatorade and Thorne supplements? Probably not. We probably need to live pretty cheap. So you could probably do your warehouse out of 2 storage units and have everyone work from home. That's probably
boom. We just solved your financial problem. USA Rugby for free.
So. I mean, that's without knowing a bunch of complicated stuff, but not sure you want to sign a year-long or even long-term deal with Glendale based on, the other things they've done.
Yeah. I mean, I've been working from home for, 2.5 months, and I work for a $300 million, extremely complex full-service investment bank. If we can manage it, I think USA Rugby, you might be able to hack it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like we own a training center or anything, so we don't have to run that. We just, every time we form...
It's probably the one thing they should have is a training center.
Yeah. Every time we form the Eagles men and women, we go rent facilities. So it's not like we own and operate a facility. Because HQ should probably look like what Glendale looks like by itself. But I would say USA Rugby should be owning a field complex that has a 5,000 person stadium that you can also rent out for tournaments and stuff. You can generate revenue off of the USA Rugby HQ, right? And also it's a training center, when you have, but whatever. I mean, that would have been the thing, right? Rick, that's actually not true. CRAA is a part of USA Rugby, and they are going to remain so. The question is, I just mentioned that. We just talked about USA Rugby maybe going to Glendale. Yeah. Not much of a rumor at this point, I don't think. So we'll get to the Glendale stuff a little bit later. So, Craig, previously you talked about how excited you are for the draft. So do you want to know what the eligibility guidelines are?
Tell us.
So it looks mostly, I would say, closer to the baseball draft, which is you have to be 21 years of age or have played 3 years of college baseball. So for this, you need to be 21 years of age or have played 3 years of college rugby to be eligible. You also have had to have played in the last season of college rugby. So this academic year, that is your eligibility stuff. When it comes to draft rights, teams hold draft rights for up to a year. So for underclassmen, obviously the draft is going to move deeper into the summer at some point. So they have up to a year to sign you if you are an upperclassman or an underclassman. And if you don't want to, if you're an underclassman, whether you're a draft eligible sophomore or draft eligible junior, and you don't want to go to that team that may draft you, you can go back to college and go play college and re-enter the subsequent draft when those draft rights expire. And so
all the same as baseball, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing as baseball in regards to that. Then the other thing is that if you are a graduating senior and you do not enter the draft, you are not in the eligible pool of undrafted free agents. So you have to go play rugby overseas or play club rugby in the United States and sit out the year. And then you are eligible to sign as a free agent. So that's about as dumb as I can make it for myself and as simple as I can make it for
That's if you don't declare for the draft.
Yeah, that's if you don't declare for the draft. So if
you don't have to draft, but
if
you have to declare.
Yeah. So whereas if you declare for the draft, your ability to get an MLR contract is just based on teams having a desire to sign you. But at any point during the year, you're eligible to negotiate a deal with the team as an undrafted free agent going forward.
Yeah.
Whereas
it's actually a clever setup because it really incentivizes people to declare for the draft. Obviously, we have way more people that have declared. If it was like 2,000 people declared or something.
No, it wasn't that much. It was 414 American players declared for the draft, and I know that that's based on the current list I have, and I think that's all. There have been some players that have withdrawn, and there have been some players that have been removed from the list already because they are ineligible for the draft because they didn't play college rugby last year or the year before or even the year before. So
400 people for a draft that's going to draft 24 total or whatever it is. So yeah. I mean, the vast majority of people that have declared are not going to be drafted.
Yeah, I think like looking for work specifically, looking at a lot of these kids, there's 24 picks in this draft. I think if you look at when it was supposed to be 48 picks, I don't think this draft is that deep where you would get good value at pick 48. I think there are 36 very good players in this draft. I think there are probably 60 to 70 total players drafted and undrafted free agents that will get invited to camps. I've spoken to a few teams. They are going to be running academy programs in the fall for guys that they have in their system. So like 404 rugby is coming back. NOLA Gold Rugby is going to have a senior academy side in the fall. They're going to play
NOLA
games.
Silver.
Yeah, no. Done. NOLA Silver. Here we go. We're going to get this. And we're great at branding. Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Solving problems left and right tonight. That's what happens when you take 11 weeks off. You come back with ideas.
So NOLA Silver it is. There's going to be, and I think New Orleans is going to host an academy tournament with a few teams as well. Speaking to General Manager Ryan Fitzgerald and our boy Nate Osborne, the last of we're going to call them the Magnificent Seven.
Is he the last?
He is the last. He's the last of the Magnificent Seven. Rick, these are academy teams playing against academy teams, although 404, I think, is staying in the American Rugby Premiership. So if there is a season for fall, they will also play against Nyack, Old Blue, Mystic, and Life. Life seniors, not Life University. D1A program. But and then I've seen a lot of stuff. Teams are taking this very seriously. Like I've seen players get graded out, and there are some names out there that people know. If you're watching the shorts that MLR's putting out. You had Bronson Tellez, Tommy Clark, Connor Buckley. They will keep coming out at a regular interval, highlighting top players that have entered the draft. So, we just get to know the players that are in the draft. It's pretty cool, right? So that's sort of the way things are going. I think a lot of young college kids that declared that are seniors are going to get an opportunity to try and earn an MLR contract if they want it. But here's the thing. I don't think every team is running an academy program in the fall, but that means there's going to be extra tape on you. And if a team has an injury and you can compete at a level that is high enough, you're going to be able to get into another camp if there's an injury. So I think that's important. The other one is the thing that, so D1A specifically, because I don't know what's going on with NCR, or not D1A specifically, but the CRAA, as it were, I would say negotiated or created these windows that allow players to go visit the MLR teams. I know that if you Rugby ATL, I don't know if they tweeted it today or yesterday, they had a bunch of players register for their college camp, which they will run in August. And it's a 4-week high performance camp. So if you are wanting to get your name out there and get noticed by Scott Lawrence or by anyone else, because I'm sure that other MLR teams are going to be paying attention to this if they're not running their own college camp for next year, because next year is an extremely deep draft. Like last year was deep, I thought. Like last year would have been a great year to have a draft, and at some point you just have to get it done. But next year is an extremely deep draft, probably as deep or deeper than last year. I mean, if you look at Rugby ATL and how they've competed, they got a lot of kids that were seniors last year, right? If you look at NOLA, they go deep into the college game, and they find players that play right away. Malcolm May, Holden Youngert, Matt Harmon, Kevin Sullivan, like all these guys are like coming right out of college and playing right away for a team like NOLA, and they're winning games. So that says how much they're into developing American players. But the interesting one, there's trades.
Yeah.
There's trades.
Weird trades too. I mean, there's not much to trade when there's only 2 rounds of the draft. Like, Utah acquired both of Houston's picks for a single player, the scrum half, to Houston. But I mean, that's still only 2. It's like you feel like trading your entire draft pick roster is a big thing, but really it's only 2 for 1. So it's not that dramatic of a shift, but it's still a little strange considering Utah's just as competitive as Houston is, really.
So I think it really says a lot about what Utah's doing. They are under Brandon Sparks, their director of rugby, which was hired last year. He coached at Michigan for, I think it was 7 years. So he's very tied in to developing American rugby players. And, it says at a time what I thought they were just going with a lot of foreign players, because they were. They're looking to develop American players with this. Like, that's what they're saying. They're saying long term we're going to have American talent, and that's how we're going to focus. And I think in a lot of ways, when you have a guy like Brandon Sparks or Ryan Fitzgerald or Alex Magleby up in New England, or Scott Lawrence in Atlanta, or I think Stephen Lewis is now consulting for Rugby United New York, paired with Greg McWilliams, that these guys, you have a lot of guys that have worked with developing American college players in their career. And they believe in the players that we have in the American college system. And it was just weird, like, to read the comments online about how prepared these players are. Here's the sunk reality for you. The top players that are eligible This is where I'm going to dunk on Craig. Povey is a fullback, not a scrum half. For those wondering, Dustin Zera from the Awesome Rugby Supporters asked if is Povey the de facto backup for Ruse then? Well, no, because they play two different positions. Campbell Johnstone is the actual backup for
well, Wikipedia has him as the fly half for Utah.
He's a fullback. And we got a shout out from Susie Minark Delgado for just going to throw Matthew Gordon from UNW out there. He played in America, but not an American. Yes, I saw his name on the draft board of several teams, so that will be very nice. There's a lot of good players in this draft, whether they're American or foreign born. So that will get an opportunity to play in Major League Rugby. But yeah, so I know who Matthew Gordon is, Susie. Continue. But it's interesting to see that investment in picks. Like New Orleans has traded with Los Angeles and swapped their picks. So they sent their second round pick to Los Angeles for their first round pick and some other stuff. And some other stuff that I can't disclose.
I saw it on Twitter. Why can't we disclose it?
What? Why? Because I mean, if the man told me I could share it, I would have done so. But he did say you could say that there was other stuff involved.
Check Twitter, you'll see what the other stuff was. Many places. Yeah, but interesting for NOLA too, because it seems like they must have their eyes on someone specific. I mean, this is, I guess, the first trade up in MLR history. So curious to see who they take. I know that I was a guest on MLR Rant last week, 2 weeks ago, and they discussed a little bit a New Orleans local college prop, and maybe that's who they're eyeing with the second overall pick. I guess we'll find out.
I mean, they are targeting specific players. I know that. That's why you trade up to get the second pick, right? That you plan to get a specific player, right? Speaking to Ryan Fitzgerald, he said, if you think if you're going into this that you're going to develop this player, like period, like baseball, the baseball mentality rather than the NFL, even the NBA mentality, where that player has to be productive right away, right? Where if you're going in, if the player that you're drafting has to start or has to play significant minutes right away, and then you may miss big, right? Like you may make a career decision that will either solidify your job or get you fired if that player. But I don't think anyone overall is going into this draft where they have a need that they need to fill with a domestic player that they can't fill with one of their foreign slots in general. But because each team has a lot of foreign slots, but at the same time, you need to develop you need to draft players that can compete for places on your roster, period. Because there's only 10 foreign slots per team, and you need to have a team of 35 players, at least, maybe 40. I think in season 1, San Diego used 42. So there's that, right? So, but for the most part, I think this focuses talent acquisition in a lot of ways, because it tells you're creating assets via draft picks, right? or that teams are already trading. So that means teams are taking the draft seriously.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember, what trades that have just occurred in general in MLR. Certainly, there haven't been many. I can't even think of one.
The biggest one I remembered was in season 1, Utah sent a foreign player slot and cap space. 3 years of a foreign player slot to Austin. And I think cap space just for that year for Pakisonasi Afu, who I think they dropped mid-season.
Yeah. So really not a major element of Major League Rugby thus far, but for the draft, we saw a couple of trades in a short period of time. So maybe this will be a segue to a greater expansion of the transactional side of the league, whereas right now it's pretty much only the on the field side, which is the better side. Yeah. But
yeah. So there have been other trades, but that's like that was like the first one. And the rest of them, I think I know of one, but I won't really comment on that one. Yeah, so that's the MLR draft. It will be on the 13th of June, which is a Saturday. One of our questions was asked of us is like, what are the broadcast details? I personally know them, but I can't share them, and I'm not going to. But there will be a broadcast with one of MLR's current TV partners, and it will be on Saturday the 13th. So that gives you FTF, Fox Sports, ESPN, and CBS Sports to figure out. So that's enough.
It's all hope for FTF.
But yeah. Yeah, I think that got in. Okay. If you didn't already know how to make a Gilgroni,
oh my goodness.
now you have to learn how to make a Giltini. Loyals Rugby officially launched their brand for the Los Angeles franchise, the Los Angeles Giltinis. And as part of that announcement, they also announced Darren Coleman, head coach of Gordon RFC in the famed Shoot Shield Championship, will be the head coach of the Los Angeles Giltinis, and Stephen Hoyles, former Wallaby and Wallaby Sevens coach, will be assisting Darren Coleman. I think as the first two coaches in LA, that's a pretty good start. The branding, I don't know.
Terrible start. Yeah, coaches could still see if they get their visas. We have a lot of trouble with coaches getting visas around here, but look, Gilgroni's obviously I don't think you actually just mentioned this, but if it's not obvious, it's the same ownership ultimately as the Gilgronis. I mean, when the Gilgronis came in, it was weird, it was funky, but it was a franchise that needed a change. They were really struggling locally, something dramatic to start over. Fine. This is just silly. I mean, the Giltinis, it sounds ridiculous. We have two Gil drinks. Those aren't even real drinks. I mean, it makes the league seem clownish to me. I mean, it just seems like something a clown league would do. This is like what my local softball league team names would be.
Dude, so I was in a club for our sevens club name that we entered into a sevens tournament. I think it was Bloodfest. El Paso Scorpions, right? And the club we entered was the Muffin Tops.
I mean, that makes eminently more sense than the Giltinis. So.
But also, I think I said this with the Gilgronis, is that something else needed to be done. In a lot of sense, the branding just needed to be burned down. Not that Austin Herd was bad, but Austin Elite and all of the the community issues that came with that, that it just needed to be excised from the situation. So any like connection to the previous ownership, they decided to just gut the whole thing, right? And they came up with the Gilgronis, which, given how much money they've put around that, it worked. I mean, and they They added to the community work that the Austin Herd did with Paul Sentinelli and Andrew and our friend Justin Zerer to try and like patch that up. But they needed to turn the page on the chapter, and well, maybe they needed to burn the book. I don't know, but they needed to move on from everything that was tied to that original ownership group, and it worked out. There was no, yeah,
so dumb. It's just really, I mean, like, part of being a rugby fan in the USA is the unfortunate circumstance of constantly pushing rugby on your non-rugby knowledgeable friends. And I guess people may do that to varying degrees, but I'm always trying to push it on my other friends, my non-rugby friends, and they don't like me doing that, but I keep doing it. But I can't even show them this. Like, it's so embarrassing to now have another Gil drink name. I just,
Why haven't you shown your friends the new Gil drink name? Like, why do you not want to show your friends the Gil drink name?
Because it's silly. That's why.
I'll be honest. I haven't told my mom, because she lives in LA, about their new rugby team. But my mom doesn't drink. My stepdad is recovering alcoholic, and this isn't just a criticism. I'm just saying my mom is gonna go, "Wah!"
Yeah, I mean, anyone who hears that
in her, and bless my mother, I just did like a perfect impersonation of.
I thought that was Mrs. Castro. On the pod. Welcome, Castro.
Yeah. So I don't know how this is gonna go over well, but
Yeah, you can't show. If I were to show this to my friends, and if any of my friends were time and getting to know Major League Rugby, they'd see this and be like, "This is not a serious thing. I'm not investing time, and this is a joke."
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I just don't know. But Austin will have a third cup to play for. Okay. They've got the Cuisine Solutions Cup. They've got, which is a rivalry with Old Glory DC. And then they've got the Texas Cup, which I think, Dallas will be added to that. I don't know. But they've got the Texas Cup, and then they've got the Cocktail Cup, baby. The Cocktail Cup.
The cocktail glass.
So I don't know what you would make the trophy look like, but they've got 3 different cup games that they will play for, and it made me feel like it was Big Ten football.
I do like cups. I do like local cups, traditions, stuff like that. So I suppose if there's a positive to come out of it, it'd be that. Oh God! Couldn't they at least just call them the martinis? Does it have to also be a made-up drink?
I don't know, man. So that's that. Coaching staff positive. I don't know about the brand. I'll pass on comments about that. That gets us to Glendale. So for all those that listen to the podcast, I think we gave an opinion about Glendale's Major League Rugby withdrawal, and we also had seen 2 interviews that Mayor Mike Donovan had executed with both Matt McCarthy of Rugby Wrap Up and also Dallin Stanford. And it was just one a little hogwash, right? And withdrawal, and it gets back to, and this, it gets back to not making a lot of sense. Glendale for a while was the rugby capital of America, right? It was the only senior rugby complex purpose built in the United States. Now we have the facility at the Aviva in Houston. And, you know, there will be others that are built as part of Major League Rugby. And so it's like, okay, so you withdrew from MLR, and I guess I should have figured this. This is where I'm getting pissed, right? So Mike says, you know, we're going to continue to develop American rugby players that will compete for national team spots. Like there's going to be a lot of rugby played here, probably more rugby than has ever been played here. Okay, so if you're going to pivot, right, and you're leaving the professional league you helped found, would you pivot and just fully support your women's club that plays in the Women's Premier League? Would that, and maybe like do less with your men's program? Well, according to sources, according to players, the men's program did not get any funding cut from the city. They will continue to play in the PRP in whatever form it looks like. Glendale also used to have a Division II program. I don't know really, based on looking at Frontier Rugby Union, there is no Division II or Division III men's team anymore. Maybe that's a body issue, or maybe it got cut and those players went to the Barbos and the Highlanders and a few other clubs in the Denver area. I don't know. All I know is they had the Raptors, they had the Merlins in the PRP, and then they had Glendale Merlins Women, WPL, and Glendale Merlins Women, D1. And in 2021, they won't exist. The women's program, they've been officially cut. The players were in.
Is that official, or is that just still?
That's official. That's okay. Official. That's not a rumor. I reached out to several players on the Raptors and also other sources that are around the Raptors or Merlin's women, not the Raptors women, but you know, this is just and one of the players said that the WPL team is supposed to get funding for the one more season. Supposedly whether that season is in the spring or in the fall or in the spring, but the WPL teams have voted to postpone the start of the season. It was supposed to start the last weekend of August. So whether the WPL season occurs in the fall or in the spring, I would think that if Glendale is saying that they're just cutting the programs completely, that they wouldn't get the funding if the WPL league moves to the spring. So we will see on that. The players are of the understanding that the WPL team will get funding for one last season. We don't know if that season will be in the fall or in the spring, but after that WPL season, there is no Glendale Merlins women's program. So, yeah.
We heard, I mean, it seems like from the internet that it was just a complete shock to the player. Did you hear any more background as to?
Oh, no. So as far as
stories, why?
So as far as I know, speaking to the players that we spoke to, the coach was informed, and then they did a Zoom call like as early as they could get all of the team on a Zoom call, which happened on Thursday. So like it. So,
but like, why? I mean,
they were just like, we're cutting the women's program. Nothing else.
Like, so I mean, I play for a club that has an elite women's program, a similar level. I mean, like we couldn't cut it. They pay for themselves. Like, how is it even that they would be able to do that?
Well, they're a municipally supported program. Like, I don't think it costs. From my understanding, is they are the best funded women's program in the country. The players don't pay much to compete in WPL.
Do they get offered? Do they say, look, if you guys want to stay, you're going to have to pay dues or whatever? Or is it just
there was that. They were like, if you guys want to use the facilities to continue playing, you will have to pay a gym membership and you will have to rent the field. So there you go.
And they declined that offer?
I don't know if that's been declined or not, but I'm sure that what will occur is that most of these women had moved to Glendale or the Denver area specifically to play for the Merlins. So I would think that without that municipal funding supporting the program, that over time, a lot of them will move out and go, whether it's to go home or to other WPL clubs, especially the women that are on the national team.
Yeah.
They will look to compete at the highest level so that they can stay in contention. And I guess.
Yeah, but I think there's two questions, I guess. I mean, if they were offered a chance to continue playing, they paid dues and they said no. I mean, I gotta think most women's club, my New York Rugby Club, certainly they paid dues to support the team. I guess the second question though is, are the men continuing to get financial support?
The men are continuing to get financial support.
Yeah, that's obviously a questionable decision.
For now.
Yeah.
For now. I would say that's a for now. But I just find it funny that someone goes out and says, Glendale will support American rugby, will continue to develop American rugby players, but we're cutting the women's program that has won multiple national championships, has stayed at the top of the WPL since they entered the league. They've never finished. I believe they've never finished lower than second. Let me look at this. Like they've where is it? So they entered the league in 20.
They lost to New York Rugby Club in the finals.
So they entered the league in 2012. In 2013, they finished third. They won championships in 2014 and 2015, and then finished second in 16, 17, and 18. 18 was when they lost to NYRC, I believe.
18, yeah.
And 2019, they defeated Life West for the WPL title. So 3 national championships and 3 runners-up. They've supported this program. They've won or almost won every single year that they've competed in, except the first 2. And in the second year, they were third. So as a program, this is in a short span of time, this is the most, in the last 10 years, this is the most successful women's rugby club in America.
Yeah, so if you're out there listening, Glendale administration, we'd love to hear the reasoning. What's the thought process behind what's going on there? We'll put it out there what your viewpoint is, but I would love to hear why this decision was made and how it fits into the long-term strategy.
It's bad for women's rugby in America. Before we get into gender equity issues, because just on a competitive basis, it takes away a system that developed Eagles. completely. Like it just removes the strongest or second strongest women's program in the country completely off the face of the planet.
Right? Yeah.
I
mean, that's bad for sure, but I feel like we need to know a little more, because if it was just a question of they didn't have the money to pay for it and they were asked to pay for themselves and they didn't want to do that, I'm a little more sympathetic to that element, putting aside the gender equity thing.
Well, I mean, so if then we go back to the gender equity piece in D1 men, or the men's program, just the men's program in general, retains funding.
Yeah.
So
tell us why. Explain yourself, Glendale.
I would like to know the reasoning behind, and if it's about economics and they're going to say that the men's team generates revenue, before, I don't think they sold 4,000 tickets per game for the Glendale Raptors before they were in MLR, and they didn't sell 4,000 tickets per game while they were in MLR, although they did sell like 2,200 while they were in Major League Rugby per game, which is great for American rugby that people are continuously paying for that. But as I said, if you're going to say that you're about developing American rugby players, gender is irrelevant, right? Like you're trying to, develop athletes to compete for the national team, to compete for World Cups. Like the women's team is closer to winning a World Cup than the men's. They finished fourth. They finished fourth in the last World Cup.
They won a World Cup, didn't they? Win the first ever World Cup.
Won the first World Cup. Finished second a few times. So like, and the women's program has been like, you're talking about very competitive. And we're in an era where England is paying central contracts, and the women's premiership in England is paying salaries now to players, and we, in general, I think England's going to leave everyone behind in the women's professionalism debate, and we're all going to be playing catch up. But removing a system where players don't have to pay much money to compete, when the rest of the league, there's the other program in the Women's Premier League, Life West, is extremely well supported, and many of those women don't have to we're not talking very large dues to fund their women's program. We're talking it's pretty limited. Like, they are not. I know with NYRC, speaking with a few of your former women's teammates, that the women are funding the WPL travel budget out of their wallet.
They're funding the whole thing out of their wallets. Yeah, I mean,
like, just so it's not like, we're talking a travel budget that's like $100,000 a year, basically. Not that much, right? Well, okay, so go back to 2 years ago before it was split into East-West.
No, it's not anything close to that.
You gotta add, when they were traveling to the West Coast.
Yeah, it still wasn't anything like that. I mean, I would say divide that by 5.
You really think it was only $20,000 that they had to come up with on the side? I don't know. But still, it's like, WPL on the East Coast is a lot more tightly packed, right? So the tough flights, they didn't have to take a flight to Orsu every year. They have to take a flight to Glendale every year. So it alternated. But still a good amount of cash.
Yeah, it's a lot of cash, and they pay for everything else too. The field rentals at home and the kit and everything else we have. I mean, we run a tournament here to raise money in the New York Thanksgiving Sevens, but other than that, it's small sponsorships and dues that pay for everything.
So, yeah. So that's kind of what's going on with that. Yeah. Crazy. Not really into that. I would like a real reason, and I know that the Glendale Merlins and the city of Glendale has not responded to any press requests from your Scrum Half connection. Went over at Wendy Young over there for comment, and this just falls in line with the weird comments that came when comments were solicited and they were directed towards the city manager and not the ownership group of the Raptors.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on in Glendale, but man, their reputation is really trending in the direction. Something more clear and focused and sensible is forthcoming.
So, well, I don't know if we'll be back next week, but we will be back after the draft. If a lot of crazy stuff happens in the next week, we might be back on Monday. But if we're not, we will be back the Monday after the draft. I think that is the 15th. We'll look to do a show, talk about everything that happened. The ownership group and the mayor of Glendale, Susie, are affiliated. I know that his name is not on the papers, but his wife is listed as a governor of the ownership group of the Raptors, the former MLR team, so that there is a direct affiliation between himself and the ownership group. But if you go back and watch the rugby wrap-up interview with Mayor Mike Donovan, he basically says that he has no idea who the owners are. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. And the city of Glendale owns Infinity Park, right? So
yeah. So
he is in charge. There's no owner of a city thing, but I mean, he's in charge of the stadium that they play in. So they're very closely affiliated in a lot of different ways.
Let me go find our Facebook questions, but I've got our Twitter questions up. So what's up with the dumb names? Mr. Grenade McBoom on Twitter.
You tell me, Grenade McBoom. You heard my take. Dumb. I hope that some pressure mounts and they reconsider that name before they take the field.
Draft broadcasting details, and also, do you think LA name will stick or the owners will change it? Petition this time now has up to 316 signatures. This is kind of funny in a lot of ways. That's from Life Love Rugby, at LL Rugby on Twitter. So there was a petition launched to keep the Raptors. Well, this petition, in a way shorter amount of time, has over double the amount of signatures. It's only 316, but it shows
maybe they could name the LA team the Raptors, and then everyone wins.
Boom! There you go.
Hey, another problem solved.
Oh, so yeah, that was funny. This question, I think, will from LaRouge Rugby Podcast, our brothers to the north. I'm gonna need to think about it for a little bit. But John Velasquez on Twitter or Facebook rather says, "Do you see LA changing their name and logo from all the comments that have been coming out from it? Don't know if you have covered this yet. Sorry if you have." So no, we are covering it tonight, John. So and then Alex Cannon says, "Yes, please discuss the naming of the Los Angeles team." I think we did, but do we see the team naming change? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe. I mean, in the early days of the MLS, Anschutz Entertainment Group owned 6 teams. Lamar Hunt Sports owned 3 teams. So LA is owned by the same ownership group. At one point, I'm sure one of those teams will get sold, and you'll end up with the Gilgronis and the Giltinis being owned separately, and one of their names may change. Will both of them change? I don't know. Dustin's there in the Facebook comments. Did LA name their team? I haven't heard anything about it. Yeah, that's but yeah, so I don't know. I would say at least for the next season, it's the LA Giltinis. But like I said, you got some great coaches. The dispersal draft is complete. I guess Blake Rogers has come out and said that he was signed by Los Angeles. So congrats to Blake Rogers. I think a total of 20 players or 20 plus players from Glendale have been drafted by Los Angeles and Dallas and been offered contracts part of the dispersal draft. But I can't really give any details about that. There will be an expansion draft. It will look a lot different than last year's because there will be a lot more protected players talking with the competitions committee because they've already been able to sign players from Glendale, and they'll be able to pull in senior players and foreign players and then college players. Mark Ferguson asks in the comments, so in Texas, we have this cool new tradition, Texas Cup. When the Gilgronis play the Giltinis, what's the prize? Said earlier, Mark, it's going to be called the Cocktail Cup, or that's what I'm calling it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's
the cocktail glass. That's like an actual thing they give you at a bar.
Yeah.
I mean, is every question about the Giltinis? This is a Giltini episode.
I think that's it, really. But the last question I wanted to put some thought to from our friends up in the north. What does your perfect kit for the U.S. and Canada look like? Well, Canada, they just announced their deal with Macron, which is an Italian athletic wear manufacturer. If you have not seen any Macron jerseys, Northampton Saints wear Macron, Scotland wears Macron, Italy wears Macron. Dude, the Macron Scotland jerseys have been great. The one for the World Cup with the collar and the I guess the sweat patches with the Scottish rugby tartan inlaid on the kits was great. They've made a lot of great collared kits for Scotland. For Italy, I like the collared kits that they make. The ones that kind of the Northampton ones aren't even that bad. But my biggest beef with Northampton is that Tool Station needs to have their sponsorship in red, white, and blue in the middle of the chest. Can't change their color palette to fit the palette of the team, apparently.
For me, I mean, I think anything with a collar is a must. If we're saying favorite kit styles, I want collars on everything. Canada, I think, is easier in a sense because red and white makes for a simple color palette. I would take it all red uniform with white piping, maybe. USA is tougher because you're tempted to get the stars and stripes in there somehow, which is a little harder to mix.
So if you go way back, we need to scrap the current logo and go back to the old, and not engraved, but embroidered eagle that we used to have. We used to wear red a lot. Want to go back to wearing red a lot. There was a beautiful, I think it was made by Land's End. A lot of the old jerseys back when things were different were Land's End was the manufacturer for a long time. They're all like thick cotton. But there was a red, white, and blue hoops cotton jersey, which was really nice. I would like to see a red, white, and blue hoops jersey as an alternate. maybe a navy, and we could do all 4 kits, like, because this is America and we do merchandising. USA Rugby hasn't really done merchandising well, but if they could get a good design going, bring back the old eagle, put it on the chest, and I think we go with we gotta go with the collar, and bring back the red tops. I'm not saying we got to look like whales. No, just bring back the red tops. In fact, let's do red with blue piping.
Yeah,
that's what I would do. Red with
I
blue.
definitely like the red, white, and blue hoops. I don't know if I like a red top. I think I'd have to see it for the USA. I like it for Canada, but I also don't want to look like Canada. So
yeah, for sure. I think the blue stuff we've had has been interesting. Mark says I have a Land's End Eagle kit. You're awesome, Mark Ferguson. I wish I had one because they look pretty cool back in the day. I think I found one on some bid site, and it was Dan Lyle's. It was Dan Lyle's kit, and I sent it to him because he's like, "Oh, I ain't getting any money from that." It's like, so yeah. I think Canada's simpler. Make sure you have a collar. That's about it. We don't know who our next kit provider is. I know that Umbro was trying to get in the conversation. It's not going to be Canterbury. I can tell you that right now. For anyone wanting Canterbury, well, I think Canterbury's kind of like struggling in the space, actually, after having England and all this, like the North American unit that was owned independently lost their license, and the Canterbury proper had to fulfill all of our World Cup stuff. So I think it's done. Who gets it next? Umbro could be back on the table because they got the England stuff done. If anyone wants to know about Umbro, I mean, they used to be in rugby in the 80s. They did England, they did the Lions, they did Ireland. They did a lot of teams. But for whatever reason, they exited. And then I think Umbro had some issues and then was purchased by Nike, refurbished, and then sold in 2017-ish to whatever brand group that owns it now. So that's it. Yeah.
11 weeks. I know you guys missed us. It's good to be back.
So, yeah, it's good to be back. Really need rugby in our lives right now. Just look to your left and look to your right and just treat each other well.
Have we been back since I won the fantasy draft league? Is that ever?
Since you won the fantasy, we need to come back and talk about that. About how we did that. Craig Gradelli, champion of the Earful of Dirt fantasy rugby draft. I, with a comeback, somehow, I don't know how, himself, the Hashling and Slashers, defeated the number 2 seed in Derek Brissett, and Beauty and the Beast. He is like, I don't know how, but guess what? So that you end up playing Preston Thompson from American Rugby Pod in the finals, and I end up playing after getting mollywopped by you in the semifinals. Beauty's and the Beast, and I end up beating him like a pulp, and it's like, how
Canada had chosen Beaumont in the World Rugby
like how did
election.
And around that same time, we were like, he's like, how did this happen? How did I end up in fourth? Like, this is bad. And it's like, and that same weekend was the World Rugby chairman vote. And it's like, well, the people said, we chose Pichot and you chose Beaumont.
Yeah. North America's rugby expressed their displeasure with Canada that weekend.
Well, Susie, awesome that you come to join the show. I know I'm not the most agreeable person out there, but thank you for your comments. I thought they were everyone that likes to watch and live, please join the comments. We love the interaction. For if you want to know where to find our podcast, we're on like every podcast provider out there that you can find us, even on Spotify. I wish we were like Joe Rogan and got that $100 million deal to take everything to Spotify. Yeah. Wild. But that is not the show, but we are always open to suggestions about where you want us to look at stuff. And if you want to sponsor the show, you can contact us at earfulofdirt@gmail.com. But follow us, please, on Instagram at earfulofdirt, on Twitter at earfulofdirt, and also on Facebook at earfulofdirt. And subscribe to us on iTunes if you use iTunes. Dustin says just a few subs short. So everyone, thank you for your time. We'll bring you the rugby news as it happens. Have a good night.